Hello and welcome into the Sporting Pod. Along with Tony Allegretti, I'm Cole Pepper. Coming up today on the pod, Tony's back in town as Mauricio motors down the road, what Allegretti learned in England, and why Ruiz isn't here today. Looking back on the second high school soccer media day, and could we see a change in the soccer schedule in the U.S.? MLS is mulling a change. We remind you that we are fed by the Bearded Pig, locally owned and operated with locations in San Marco and Jax Beach. Make sure you swing by the Bearded Pig for great barbecue and great times. Hey, right back in studio with the snorts.
Yes.
The oinks.
The pig is back.
Great to have you back. We talked a bit with you about your adventures in London. Of course, coinciding with the Jaguars being over there as well. A lot of movers and shakers in the business world from Jacksonville. Tell us what you can about, first, from a business standpoint, and then secondly, from a soccer-specific standpoint, some of the things you saw over there.
Yeah, well, so for 11 years now, actually, since every home game of the Jags over in London, sort of started, I've been working with a group of UK-based professionals and then one or two professionals here that were from the UK, specifically Simon Keemer and I started a thing with Justin, our friend, in Frome, which is outside of London, but he works predominantly in London. Anyway, we set up a economic roundtable, and so we would go in. The first one actually included Shad. We visited the Surrey Cricket Club. We had a great reception, but what it became is a platform for UK businesses to understand Jacksonville better and vice versa. And it's really spurred off a lot of success, a lot of shared sort of principles and some good collaborations, but also some headquarters moving here, different things. There's a big push right now, for instance, to get a direct flight. So, and that is something that I think would be relevant not just one time a year for the Jaguars, but there's a lot of business going back and forth. So I think it would be very interesting. I'd say the biggest sort of event that I was able to go and a lot of folks were there before I was. So I caught kind of the middle and then the last half. Was at the Cavalry Guard, and there was a really good reception to introduce a lot of fintech folks from the UK, from London, obviously financial capital of the world, with some folks in Jacksonville, and that one seemed like there was an excellent sort of camaraderie that'd been the day before there at the U.S. Embassy, et cetera. Really good exchange. We had a couple preset meetings with some clubs over there that we did, and that was half business, half best practices. And so a lot of that was just always enlightening. A lot of fun.
You got to take in some soccer while you were there, too.
I did. Yeah, I was blessed to be able to go to Portman Road. So I got the away day for Everton, and they got a big 3 points there. Very interesting what's happening in Ipswich, which is a lot of people may not know that, their primary ownership or sort of leadership is Brett Johnson, who's also the owner of Rhode Island here in the States. Right. And this is kind of a golden thread. There's a lot of U.S. ownership, obviously, in the FA. And there's a tremendous amount of overlap between the USL and some of the other teams. I was also able to go see Leyton Orient. I was lucky this year. Wasn't as lucky last year, but all the teams that I went and visited this year won, including the Jaguars. So that was excellent.
By the way, that was the difference, game 1 to game 2.
Yeah, a lot of people were saying. A lot of people were saying. I was actually a little late too. So as soon as I got there, some folks were saying, big punt return. I did see that, and then it just kind of rolled on from there. I mean, I'm not taking credit, but.
Yeah, you're probably uncomfortable.
I'll accept.
You're uncomfortable with the term inspiration, but if somebody else wants to use it,
that's fine. Yeah, get it.
So, what did you learn, and what did you take away from a soccer perspective? You talk about the best practices and things that you think will impact or lead or inform what Sporting Jacks does moving forward.
Well, so in that regard, one of the best things was being able to visit and tour the Brentford training facility. They have a new training facility. They're actually very proud to show you the old one, which just looks like this tiny shed next to some pitches. The pitches are all top notch. That's the most breathtaking thing about the UK is the standard of their fields.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. But so this little tiny shack was Brentford's sort of training facility headquarters. They had one washing machine. We always get to meet my favorite part about visiting training facilities is getting to meet the staff. And so the upbeat nature of the kit man in the laundry room and how they treat one another, it's completely with Brentford. It's completely about people. And then so we had a great sit down with Lee Dykes, who's their assistant manager, talked about their sort of pathway and what they're looking for in terms of sort of global outreach. A lot of these guys use algorithms and a tremendous amount of data to find players, but then that only goes so far because you have to have the infrastructure to get players. They can't all come over to London immediately. They have to find a route for that, which a lot of teams, including Brentford, are looking at other places around the world to build those bridges.
Really interesting article, by the way, on the Brentford website from December about Lee Dykes and his 7 stages of recruitment. If you're into that sort of thing, I recommend it. Very insightful. It's the kind of sort of behind-the-scenes info that we like to try to share. Obviously, we'll have a lot more opportunities as we continue to grow with Sporting Jacks. But it's exactly the kind of thing where you go, okay, I understand now better about how they approach things. There are so many different approaches, so many different perspectives on developing a first team or an academy or a system. There are, I'm not going to say there's as many approaches as there are clubs, but it might not be that far off. Maybe just a percentage thereof, and that's a great little bit of information. So if you go to the Brentford website and check that out, it's a good read. All right, so that's your travel. Anything outside of your specifically business relationships and soccer/football? Anything else that really stood out to you on this trip?
Yeah. So one of the things that was, I think, I picked up at Leyton Orient, which is super good. Another club that's partially owned by a USL owner. This is happening all over, by the way, which is excellent for us and for these kind of discovery trips. But at Leyton Orient, they're investing a lot into the grounds and what the consumer experience is, the supporter experience is like. And one thing that I've noticed is a almost hospitalityization of sort of the common areas, right? So there's a really great bar behind the stands, behind the goal, where the big supporters were the sort of loud supporters of Orient were, and it was all like nice tile floors, and it was big screens everywhere, nice bars, and it was it was no extra to be as you're a ticket holder, you could get in here, and it was like an upgrade without having to pay hundreds of dollars per match more, which I thought was super inviting, very, very cool. They had some other things that I thought were outstanding, like they had automatic pint machines, so you could go up and get your beers and really save time. I still think my favorite for the halftime beer sort of challenge is the token. So you buy your tokens ahead of time, you plop your token down, you take your beer, you're gone. Like, it takes no time for a transaction.
Yeah. All right. That's interesting. Give me a food and drink review on your trip. What was the highlight food and drink? Okay, so this one's, I'm very privileged in a lot of these situations to be able to go at a high level and meet executives and meet owners, and that was the case in Leyton Orient. And I have to shout out, because it literally was the best risotto I've ever had. My apologies to my mom and my bride, but they had a pumpkin risotto, which I normally wouldn't get pumpkin. Pumpkin, I think, is overwhelming as a flavor, and whatever. It was not overwhelmingly pumpkin at all. It was little chunks of pumpkin, but the risotto was so extraordinary. I actually did a Google review. I'm very big on Google reviews, and so I had to shout it out because it was literally the best food I've ever had. Listen, If a guy named Allegretti says the risotto is good, the risotto is good.
I'm saying.
We know it. All right, that's good. Love that. Whenever somebody goes on a trip, some of the questions I always tend to ask, what did you see? Sporting events attended. A lot of friends obviously are sports fans traveling for sports or working in sports, and then the food and drink, those are always great areas to kind of mine in terms of information. We are recording this before the United States plays Iceland on Thursday evening, and that's where Mauricio Ruiz will be in Austin as part of some U.S. soccer training and professional development there. As you know, Mauricio does some scouting for U.S. soccer as well. So in addition to being the sporting director, or the technical director, rather, for Sporting Jacks, so we'll get some good travel reports from Mauricio.
Do you have a prediction for that game? I think Iceland's a pretty good competition.
They're up to 13. Yeah. They're up to 13. I think it all depends on how Emma Hayes approaches it in terms of player usage. There are these 3 matches here in pretty short order, and basically within a week. They play Iceland on Thursday, then Iceland again on Sunday, and then Argentina next Wednesday. So there going to be some minutes managed there for sure. But I think the U.S., as long as they're taking this seriously, should be about a 2-0 win. I think maybe 3-1, something in that range. Iceland is I think up to 13th, 12th, 13th, something like that in the FIFA World Rankings. So U.S. back up to 1, by the way, after winning at the Olympics, right back where
we belong.
Right back where we belong. The Sporting Jacks report. We'll have more on the U.S. women's team. We'll hear from Becky Burley talking about what she thinks is important in this 10-day stretch for the U.S. women's national team. That'll come up on the Sporting Jacks report Saturday at noon on NBC 12, right before the Premier League coverage. We'll get to the game that it leads up to here in a moment. And also, you can join us every Tuesday at 6 for the Sporting Jacks Soccer Hour on 1010XL. You can also listen live and on demand on 1010XL.com. All right, we also had this past week, you missed it, you were traveling or about to travel, coming back as we were holding the second High School Soccer Media Day, thanks to our friends at the Riverside YMCA that hosted in the gym over there. We had 48 high school soccer teams. Yeah. And they just kept coming.
That's awesome.
It was great. Added some new components that Mauricio talked about last week with some vendors who are in the health and wellness space and nutrition and mental coaching and things like that hopefully will provide some benefit at some point to those coaches or teams, and just trying to, again, lift the game anywhere we can. All of the kids were very excited to be interviewed. It's not something that happens all the time in high school soccer, nearly as often as it does for the stars in, say, high school football. But I will tell you, too, one of my favorite reactions came when I would ask, and I didn't ask every single player we talked to, but just about every team, at least a smattering of what they thought the World Cup would do for soccer when it comes here in 2026. Some of them got very analytical with it. Others, and one that pops right to mind is Omar Turto, who is one of the top players in the area, plays for Mandarin, and he's from Bosnia originally. And he saying his eyes and face just lit up with the thought of what the World Cup will do for soccer. And we've talked about it, of course, behind the scenes, and everybody who's in soccer thinking about, okay, how do you utilize the big lift that comes from that to really continue to lift, to make a lasting impact? But these 16, 17, 18-year-olds are very excited that they'll have a chance to see the World Cup in their home country.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was 24 when the last World Cup hit here, and it did a tremendous amount. I think with access to the sport now and access to almost every league on the planet, every top league on the planet, it's even more relevant now. And these kids who have been able to watch their national team or able to watch their club that's from their country are able to be here and be host of that. I hope as many of those kids get to go to matches, but be a part of what's happening.
I will be interested to hear if the USL Championship amends the schedule to work around the World Cup at all. You don't want to compete with the World Cup; you won't get any eyes, right?
Right.
So hopefully that's being thought about down in Tampa at the league headquarters.
Well, a lot of countries, especially now with a 48 country sort of slate, that there's USL players,
Yeah,
right?
true.
So you think about some of the CONCACAF, but also just really all over. So you would think that they would. It may be unavoidable, but you would think that they would pause or at least maybe do some midweek fixtures instead.
Yeah, just work around a little bit. We'll see how it all plays out. Speaking of schedules, I don't know if you saw this story. MLS is considering, at least discussing, going to a fall to spring schedule. Interesting that the MLS and NWSL seem to be following what the USL Super League already is ready to go. Paul Chenorio, the great reporter now with The Athletic, is reporting that there have been discussions within Major League Soccer about the possibility of changing the schedule, which would be a huge change. It would bring MLS in line with the rest of the world from a men's soccer schedule. So I'm going to. This is a hypothetical. Let's say MLS does that. What are the pluses and minuses? And more notably for folks in Jacksonville, how would that impact the USL Championship and the other in USL League One, et cetera? Would it impact what's happening from that standpoint? And do you think that would be the precursor of everybody going to a fall to spring schedule, which is what the USL Super League is doing right now?
So if I had my crystal ball, I'd say they'll do it. I think all leagues eventually will do it, mostly based on fixture congestion. And so having these lined up makes it a lot easier to schedule your national team players, do different sort of scenarios with the transfer market. All those things kind of match up. I also think that there's a lot of things that are unique to MLS that are also their weights around their neck a little bit, and this is one. Another one, like we saw the NWSL get rid of the draft. I think that's a albatross for MLS. I think there's some things that they can do like this that will take a lot of planning and take some thing, but that improve their overall sort of cachet in the world as a top league. You can't be so different and actually try to be in the conversation of other top leagues. You gotta do what the rest of the world is doing.
Now,
sometimes.
I will also say that one of the things this would do would be to move the a lot of the fixtures out of the summer months, which in the South, if you're playing in Florida or in Texas, if you're playing somewhere that doesn't have a dome stadium like Atlanta and you're playing in the South, it's an issue. It definitely is, and it does. But it also, listen, the summertime months don't have nearly the competition from a sports eyeballs standpoint. You don't have football. You don't have high school and college and pro football to contend with. You maybe have a few NBA a little bit in the summertime, with the playoffs, NHL. And then basically you're just up against Major League Baseball for the most part as the number one single professional sports attraction. So domestically speaking, I think it makes a little less sense than it does world football scope speaking. Yeah. So would that lead the rest of, say, the USL? Obviously, if MLS did it and MLS Next Pro is going to do it, so you have the first and third divisions there. What about the second division with USL Championship and the other USL leagues? What
I think it's even easier and smarter for the championship to do that. One of the things about the MLS is they share. Atlanta shares with the Falcons, and a lot of the first team stadiums are the same as NFL. So who's going to win that scheduling battle. Yeah. So maybe it becomes too difficult to do it that way. We don't have that as a prohibitive thing for the championship, so I think it's even easier to be honest. But I think it's also great that it's being discussed right now, right? Because these things take time, and if you don't talk about it as an idea, it's a shock at the end, and you don't want that. So.
Let me also point out that we talked about the heat being a factor. For MLS in particular, with clubs in Seattle and Portland and Minnesota and New England, they may be roughly on the same, parallel as England, but the steering currents and everything else make it much different kind of weather. If you've been in Minnesota in January, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and the kind of conditions you might have to contend with playing in some of those climates. So it's something to consider. We'll see how it all plays out, but it is a constantly evolving situation. And in general, we have seen soccer in this country bend toward a European sensibility more often than not. If you go back to look at the original NASL and some of the rules there, or the early penalty shootout format for MLS and different things, it was much different. All right, let's quickly hit the Champions League, because I do want to get to the Premier League matchup of note for this weekend, or one in particular. Right now, the Premier League clubs are dominating in the Champions League. The top teams in the table, again, remember this year they have gone from group play into playing in this league schedule where the top 8 advance to the next round, and then clubs 9 through 24 play off to also get in. But this has been a impressive start here for some Premier League clubs, most notably Liverpool and Villa. Villa has not dropped a point nor conceded a goal. Liverpool has not dropped a point and conceded only 1 goal so far. Man City just right behind them with 1 draw, even though they haven't conceded so far. Does this matter? Is it too small a sample size to say that this is a sign of the Premier League taking another step forward?
Oh, I think it matters. I mean, it's, again, these clubs are so stacked with players, and they have the ability to make a few changes for European nights. They're really on a roll right now. The Prem is doing things that a lot of top leagues wish that they could do. So, yeah, I think it's a sign of the times. Today will be interesting, though. You got Mourinho versus Ten Hag. Mm-hmm. So I think there's some interesting on the Europa side scenarios that might reality check.
By the way, and there are some big clubs I was going to mention who are not right now. They have to play their way back into that top 24 to get in. Mm-hmm. Milan, Atletico Madrid, PSV, Shakhtar, Red Bull Leipzig, so both the Red Bull clubs, Red Bull Salzburg, also the Leipzig you would expect a little bit more, who have not gotten those results so far. So kind of interesting to see how it's playing out this year as they change the format of the Champions League to allow more teams in, and then, again, back to our conversation about too many fixtures. Hey, there's an opportunity for you to become an official member of Sporting Jacks. It's absolutely free. Go to sportingjacks.com to sign up. You get discounts on club merchandise, invitations to VIP events, chances to win special prizes and experiences, and you'll receive the Sporting Jacks email newsletter with all the latest goings-on with the club. You can also place a deposit on season tickets there and receive first access to seats, plus a limited edition special Sporting Jacks founding member pin. Just go to sportingjacks.com. All right, we like to finish up the podcast with, which game are you most looking forward to this weekend? I will point out that immediately following our broadcast of the Sporting Jacks report will be the feature game on NBC, Everton and Fulham. Tony, I know obviously you're an Everton man, but I think your second club might be Fulham if you were picking
there's
a
no
second
such
club.
thing. No, there's no such thing as a second club.
You were a full American.
Well, I definitely
identifier.
We have obviously close relationship with the owner of Fulham here in Jacksonville. No, I'm Evertonian. It's like asking. I always ask, where can I buy a half and half scarf when you really want to make someone mad? There's no. I'm completely.
Let me put it this way. I know you're an Everton guy, number one, and I know the two best results for you in a weekend is Everton winning or Liverpool losing, right?
That's right. Yes,
but
there's a song about that.
The next thing might be maybe I'm overselling your interest in Fulham, but I think you like to see Fulham succeeding.
Sure, absolutely. Well, any club that has a connection with Jacksonville at all. I mean, you can look at Bournemouth as Bill Foley, and that's our two, I think, Fortune 500 companies. He's the chairman there. You've got Carlisle, which is Piatek. And, like there's amazing sort of Jacksonville connections to a lot of clubs, and I definitely do support them. But it's a little different story. Like,
yes.
yeah, okay. And so if am I happy if Fulham stays up where they are in the table? Of course, yeah, that's great for them. Yep.
Well, that'll be the matchup. You'll be looking forward to.
Yeah, this
no
weekend.
doubt.
This weekend, I hope they lose.
All right, that'll do it for the Sporting Pod. Next week, Mauricio will be back. You'll be in town. I'll be in town. We'll do a Halloween recording of. Do you have are you going? Do you Halloween costume it at this point in your life?
No, but I could come up with some FKW or something.
All right. Well, we'll see how it works out. Because I have a 5-year-old. She has already decided what our Halloween costumes are.
Yours,
yes, and my wife's.
Excellent, wonderful.
I can let it out now, and she is enamored of the movie Inside Out 2 right now.
Okay.
So the Disney movie with the emotions and so forth.
Yeah.
So she is going as anxiety. She's decided that
that's the funnest one.
Well, it is
not in real life.
No,
as a computer.
As a character. As a character. There's no doubt. And I'm hoping this is not the way that she views us, but she's told my wife she's going as sadness and I'm going as anger.
Oh.
So,
wow, yes, that'll be fun.
Yeah. So we'll be at that. Last year we did a Star Wars theme as a family, so we shift to Inside Out 2 this time around. All right, that'll do it. Thanks to Tony Allegretti. We will look forward to Mauricio's return next week. For all the guys here and for our friends here at Gemstone Media, who are such gracious hosts to have us record in their studios, I'm Cole Pemper. Thanks for listening to The Sporting Pod.